So one of the rules that you have just amended is about the dual-use rule in terms of civilian and getting able to get investments more directly into the defense sector. What exactly has changed?
Well, thank you very much for having me. And indeed, I think it's quite clear that we need to step up our support to Europe's security and defense industry. We need to reinforce our capacity in this area. And the European Investment Bank is ready to play its role in supporting Europe's defense industry. From this point of view, what we have done is put forward an action plan, which has been endorsed by our board last week and is up and running since 1st of May, and which will indeed allow us to finance dual-use technologies and infrastructures, removing a constraint that existed, which required that more than 50% of future revenues should come from the civil use side for it to be financed.
Right, and so now it's 0%, but there still is this mandate of dual use. So to understand better how this actually works, because this doesn't mean that you can, for example, invest in something that produces, say, ammunition, which isn't what is in high sort of need right now for Ukraine and in Europe, correct?
Well, we are an investment bank, and the mandate from European leaders was clear that we should step up our support to Europe's security and defense industry while safeguarding our financing capacity. And this is what we have been doing. This is what we are doing. The reaction of financial markets is confirming that we're on the right track, and our board of directors endorsed our strategy as recently as last week. And so now we have this action plan, which should allow us to speed up with the investment of the 6 billion euros, which are already earmarked for this industry.
Yeah, and so that was also, I mean, 6 billion is also quite a small proportion of the entire fund. Are you looking at potentially boosting that over the years, just given the scale of the need that there is in European defense?
We have 6 billion euros. Actually, the program had 8 billion euros earmarked. We have only invested 2 billion euros. We are focusing right now in speeding up the investment of these 6 billion euros and also getting up and running a capital investment of 175 million euros in startups, innovative startups also in this area.
And for those 2 billion, was it just because there wasn't demand for the loans, or is it because there were all these rules around and you hope that that capital can get to work?
Well, obviously, we are now expanding, enlarging the scope of projects that we can finance. We are also speeding up these divestments with a single-stop shop, with a dedicated team, and we're going to be proactively reaching out. Actually, we have launched a call for projects. And so our expectation is that in the second part of the year, there will be more projects, more demand, as you named it, and that we will be able to step up our support to Europe's security and defense industry while safeguarding our financing capacity, which is the mandate from our
And when
leaders.
you say safeguarding your financing capacity, it's to do with the credit rating. You think that could be jeopardized by investing in these sorts of companies? What exactly is the relationship there?
Well, obviously, credit rating agencies, but also investors are looking carefully at many areas that have to do with our financing capacity. So far, as I was saying, financial markets are responding as we had anticipated, and our board of directors endorsed last week our action plan, which will allow us to step up our support.
And in terms of the EIB's role in rebuilding Ukraine and funding that, how do you imagine the EIB's role in that?
Well, we're playing a very important role already. We're probably the key financing investor partner to the Ukrainian government. We're in very close contact. Only some weeks ago, I signed a memorandum of understanding with Prime Minister Shmyhal, and I hope that in June we will be able to already sign some specific projects and speed up our investments on the ground in large infrastructures, energy, transport, also in municipal and local projects having to do with restoring and renovating, rebuilding schools, hospitals, houses, and also supporting the private sector. Many of these projects are already ongoing, and as of the signature of the Memorandum of Understanding, I think we will be able to do more. While the war is unfortunately going on, I hope we will be able to step up our support with the rebuilding of the country once the war is over.
And then a question also on the sort of gearing ratio, which is basically the rules that are imposed on the EIB about how much you can lend vis-a-vis how much cash you have. And right now it's at a fairly conservative 2.5 times. And you said that it's perhaps outdated and that there might be ways to unlock much more capital for Europe without being a burden on taxpayers. Where do you see, what is an appropriate level for that?
Well, I mean, most multilateral development institutions have already removed these outdated kind of nominal ratios, which are enshrined in the statute and which are very rigid and do not respond anymore to our business model. They don't take into account the risk profile of the investments or the mandates and guarantees. And so many of them have also gone for capital increases. In the case of the European Investment Bank, it's a very good business for European countries, EU countries, because with 22 billion euros in paid-in capital, we have mobilized 5 trillion euros in investment, and we don't need, if we remove this gearing ratio, so we remove it from the statute, this outdated constraint, we don't need a capital increase in order to be able to fulfill our function as financing arm of the EU.
And do you think that can happen at some point in the near future? What is the process precisely for getting that done?
I expect our shareholders, which are the member states, to remove this from the statute in their June annual meeting in the shareholders' General Assembly.
And of course, we are on the cusp of a European election, a EU-wide election, and obviously the outcome there, the Greens, for example, are set to lose a large bit of their constituencies, and the far right surging a bit. How does that play into sort of the EIB's investment strategy as the sort of climate bank if there is less popular support for some of the climate initiatives?
I'm quite convinced, and I see it because of the fact that companies are investing more and more into the green transition. I think they're getting on with it, and I think they see this is a very interesting business proposition, and it's important that Europe continues to lead the green transition. So I'm quite convinced that the next Commission will also feature the green transition as one of its top priorities. We have our mandates running up to 2027, but I am quite sure that this preservation of Europe as the leader in this transition, also from a technological leadership point of view, will continue to profile very highly going forward.
And I want to get just sort of your reaction to the vote that just happened in Spain over the weekend, the Catalan election. There's been some political instability in Spain, which has otherwise been a very positive economic story for Europe. And as the former economy minister, what do you make of the political outcomes and how they could impact the economy?
Well, I couldn't comment on national politics since I'm no longer the vice president of the government in Spain.
But you know the economy well and how these two interact.
Well, definitely. Yeah. Well, I think that, what happened yesterday in Catalonia, which is a very important region of Spain, is actually that for the first time the nationalistic independentist movement does not have the majority to form a government. And that generally, from a European point of view, is good in the sense that we're moving ahead with a further integration, a pro-European kind of politics. But generally, Spain has had a very positive profile. It's a success story, very strong recovery after the pandemic, very strong growth until now. And frankly, the situation in Spain is not different to many other countries that are undergoing political changes. Resilience of the European economy has been remarkable. And I think that's also because European authorities have taken the right decisions in the last years.
And when you think about the threats to that sort of ongoing economic sort of prosperity, what do you think they are right now?
Interestingly, during the spring meetings in Washington only some weeks ago, the headline was the economy is performing better than expected. The geopolitics is worse than expected. So I think the main threat to our economic performance right now globally is actually coming from geopolitical tensions, the ongoing wars, the tragedies that we're witnessing on a daily basis. So I would hope that we find a solution and a new equilibrium which will allow us to continue to make progress, to grow and to bring prosperity throughout the world.